Manx Radio's Update with Dave Moore.
The time is 5:30. You're listening to Manx Radio. I'm Dave Moore and this is Update. Welcome to the programme. Half an hour of the latest news in the Isle of Man plus Manx sport, business, travel updates along with the newsmakers in person. Coming up, a local pharmacist is welcoming Manx Care's reintroduction of mask wearing at its sites. The steam packet's hoping disruption to its service because of dredging in Liverpool will be infrequent in future. And after 50 years of broadcasting and 17 at Manx Radio, we say goodbye to Marc Tyley as he hangs up his headphones. That's all coming up in the next half hour.
Man Benham for all your business and legal needs.
But first of all, with the update news headlines at 5:31, it's Christian Jones. Faster my.
Mortgage holders, including those on the Isle of Man, are expected to face what the Bank of England describes as very large payment increases when the current fixed deals expire. It's thought the majority of them will finish before the end of 2026. The Health Minister says he wouldn't be in favour of restricting who can go on an NHS dentist list. Last year, Manx Care revealed it was considering introducing eligibility criteria in a bid to tackle the waiting list, which currently stands at more than 5,000. And consumer inflation on the island increased by 0.5 percentage point last month, bringing the overall rate at which prices are rising to 2.7%. The largest increase is down to education, which is up 6.5% in comparison to the same period 12 months prior. In international news, police say they're looking at comments made by Reform UK activists, which were recorded by an undercover news team. The UK Prime Minister says he's angry at that his children will have to hear a racial slur used about him by one of those featured in the footage. A former British ambassador to the US says senior Democrats will be looking at ways they can replace Joe Biden as their presidential candidate. He struggled in a televised debate with Donald Trump last night. And England footballer Anthony Gordon insists he'll get back in the saddle after falling off a bike on a break from training. The winger says he was trying to make a video for his family when it all went wrong. Those are the Update News headlines, next at 6.
Secure tomorrow today with Man Benham's guidance on powers of attorney and more. Manx Radio weather with Manx Glass and Glazing.
Thank you, Christian. Fairly dry with bright or sunny intervals and a moderate westerly breeze, turning cloudy overnight as the wind falls light, temperatures dropping to 11 Celsius. Outbreaks of rain and drizzle at first tomorrow morning. However, this will clear in the afternoon, allowing sunny spells to develop. The light and variable wind will settle to the northwest as the rain clears through, with a best temperature of 17 Celsius. Dry but cloudy at first on Sunday, with the best of any brightness coming later. Moderate to fresh northwest winds and temperatures rising to 17 in the afternoon.
Manx Glass and Glazing are proud to be an approved contractor with Construction Isle of Man. Call the team on 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate. You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
A pharmacist in the Isle of Man's welcoming Manx Care's move to introduce mask wearing at all medical settings. Hamza Abdelghani told Manx Radio the reintroduction of the precautionary covering simply means people need to take more care when in a social setting or when going for checkups.
The decision to go ahead and put masks back on has affected us in pharmacies, of course, as well, because we are patient-facing. So a lot of pharmacies are choosing to, of course, to wear the mask. All the staff here are looking to do that as well. I think the comment that they used is that it's tried and tested. They know that mask wearing mitigates transfer of various viruses, and they're using it as a precautionary measure, of course. This also happened, if I remember correctly, in September 2023, when we had a spike of COVID patients. So I think we can look at it and see that you saw the typical wave of COVID spikes happening, and then mask wearing introduced to kind of mitigate that risk a little bit. So yeah, I think it's overall it's a good decision, and we should try and stick to it as much as possible if we can.
Right, and in terms of people that's coming through for advice, are you seeing more people maybe with COVID or with the flu or anything like that?
A lot of people coming in worried about it, so they'll either come in with a mask and try and stay away from everybody, and you can kind of see that there's a marked level of stress or anxiety related. This probably won't be the last time that they introduced mask wearing. It happened in September 23. It's happening now. A few months or a year down the line, we may find the same thing reoccurring. The take-home message from me is to strengthen your body, strengthen your immune system, exercise, sleep well, reduce stress, have a varied diet, and that is going to do you a world of good.
You're listening to Manx Radio. This is Update. The steam packet says it expects further rescheduling of services to be infrequent as regular dredging works continue in Liverpool. Sailings were delayed yesterday due to tidal conditions. Chanel Saku has more.
The company says, as with all ports, it monitors the tides in relation to the available depth of water to ensure safety of the vessel, passengers, crew and other port infrastructure, and it expects to see improvement. With regards to access to the Isle of Man ferry terminal, the company says further signage has been put up to help passengers navigate to the facility. It adds vehicle passengers should make their way directly to the new terminal via Jesse Hartley Way and not via the old terminal. Foot passengers can access the new terminal by the pedestrian bridge, which runs from Prince's Dock to Central Dock, or can walk through the Crown Plaza Hotel car park and straight along the inside of the docks to reach the new terminal, which is a short 5 to 10 minute walk. Regarding vehicle and foot passenger access to the new terminal, Isle of Man Steam Packet Company staff are on hand at the old terminal ahead of every sailing to help redirect passengers, and further signage has been put in place to help passengers navigate to the new facility.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Police in the Isle of Man say they won't stop targeting juveniles who are taking vehicles without consent, saying the youngsters don't realise how dangerous their actions could be. Sergeant Elliot Butler from the Roads Policing Unit spoke to Siobhan Fletcher about the rising trend.
It seems to be now that there's almost trends in the UK for people to take vehicles and to basically record themselves driving very dangerously, putting lives at risk. And that unfortunately seems to have now taken foothold on the Isle of Man in a very small group of individuals. I feel that what started with a smaller number of people involved in it slowly starts to catch on with the use of TikTok, and other people might look at that and go, oh, actually, I want a slice of that, not realising just the consequences that their actions have.
The kids in these videos are easily identifiable. They're showing the faces or they're showing whereabouts on the island they are. Do you think there's a perception that the kids maybe aren't scared of the consequences or don't realise how serious what they're doing is?
A collision at 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, you're talking life-changing if not fatal for whoever they collide with, and they're not seeing the big picture in terms of that. And also, in regards to these videos, I just want to say that when we do see these videos online, we have been taking action. We have been making arrests straight away, multiple arrests in regards to it, and whenever there's a line of inquiry, we're taking it straight away.
How do you deal with a juvenile in this situation?
Robustly. I'm all for offender diversion, in particular being young, because I've been young. I've done things that I would question now as a police officer when I was younger, and it's called growing up and learning. However, when it comes to putting lives at risk, in particular repeating the same thing again and again, there's no other way but dealing with them robustly.
You're listening to Update. The Health Minister says he wouldn't be keen to see eligibility criteria introduced for NHS dental treatment. Last year, Manx Care says it was something it was considering, but Laurie Hooper told a Tynwald committee it's not something he's in favour of.
Policy around access criteria and eligibility would sit with the department. I know Manx Care expressed the view that you could change eligibility criteria. I don't think I would be keen on that, if I'm honest. I'm more keen to go the other way, actually. And I think the conversations that we've been having with Manx Care are how do you resolve the issues with the dental contracts? How do you resolve the issues with the underlying issues with the model? I mean, Paul alluded it to there. Dentists in different parts of the island get paid different amounts for every unit that they deliver. It's not a standard price. It really needs to be overhauled, and that's what we're focused on, because I think if we don't overhaul it, you are looking then at having to say, well, do we have to start restricting access? I don't think that works. I think the reality is access is already restricted because of the nature of the system, because of the way it's funded, because of the way the model works, and you see that in the 5,000 or so waiting list that you mentioned. access to NHS dentistry is restricted, not deliberately here. This is not a choice that we've made. It is being restricted in part because of the way that the contracts work, because of the way the system works, and partly because a lot of it is interlinked with how the UK operates. We don't train dentists. They're regulated in the UK. There's all sorts of interlinked issues there. So in short, the policy around eligibility and charging sits with the department. My understanding is, I think if we needed to make changes to some of that, we would have to go to Tynwald as well. I'm reasonably confident that changes to charging regimes have to go through a Tynwald process. So ultimately, it will be our decision to make the request, but it would be a Tynwald decision to change eligibility and charging and all the rest of it. It would sit with Tynwald Court.
Manx Radio Business Briefing.
Thousands of UK bank customers have been hit by payment problems affecting some of the biggest high street lenders. Banks including HSBC, Nationwide, Barclays and Virgin Money were all affected by issues with a system that operates payments between individuals and firms. The group overseeing the payment system says the issue causing the problems has now been fixed and the payment backlog has been cleared. Many customers complained on social media, with some saying their salaries hadn't been paid into their accounts. Lawyers acting on behalf of two people who fell ill in the E. coli outbreak have started legal action against two leading supermarkets. Legal firm Field Fisher said today it had issued letters of claim for breach of the Consumer Protection Act over brand sandwiches purchased in Tesco and Asda. The claims for compensation relate to a man from the southeast of England and an 11-year-old girl in the northwest. One person in England has died linked to the ongoing E. coli outbreak. However, the UK Health Security Agency said yesterday they had underlying health conditions.
The Stock Market Report, brought to you by Ramsey Crookall.
UK and European stocks pared losses as investors digested key inflation data from the US and Eurozone. The euro was on track for its biggest monthly fall since January, as political uncertainty weighed in the run-up to the French general election. Oil prices fell on signs of weak demand. Gold prices rose and were poised for a third straight quarterly rise. Nike says it expects a surprise 10% drop in quarterly revenue as it faces growing competition from new arrivals such as On and Hoka. The news sent Nike shares plunging more than 15%. Onto the markets, the FTSE 100 is at 8164, that's down 0.19%. The Dow Jones is at 39,252, that's up 0.22%, with the Nasdaq at 17,901, up 0.24%. Exchange rates, the pound against the dollar is 1.264 and against the euro 1.179. In commodities, gold is at $2,329 US, that's up 0.09%, and Brent is at $84.98 US, that's down 0.47%.
I'm running late again. Do you know where I put my car keys?
In the fridge.
Where's my phone?
Under the dog basket.
Bye.
You haven't forgotten that we're seeing Ramsey Crookall later?
Oh, no, of course not. 5 p.m, is it?
2:45.
I'll be there.
Life is busy. That's why Ramsey Crookall's team takes time to help you make a mindful investment decision, considering all the options, giving you full control of your financial future. Less stress, more assurance.
Forgot to put my shoes on.
Oh.
See how we can make your money work for you. Call 717171 or visit ramseycrookall.com. Licensed and regulated by the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
You're listening to the Isle of Man's quintessential daily news and current affairs roundup. Update on Manx Radio.
Representatives from Business Isle of Man have been at the Cannabis Europa event in London this week. Tim Cowsall is the Chief Executive Officer.
The Isle of Man has been working on its medicinal cannabis industry for quite a long time for export, and now we feel in a position that we've got all the bits and pieces that make up the legislation and framework to actually be in a position to fully advertise. And it was a really interesting conference for us because we saw the validation that our proposition is right and a little different from everybody else's. You've got regulations that are very, very different across different countries. And the Isle of Man has developed a framework with the GSC, which is our gambling regulator, but having them as a business-focused regulator and then having a business-focused licensing regime that's really clear about what exactly is needed to have a license, we've really found that we've got a USP there. So that was really good validation for us. Cannabis Europa is UK's biggest medicinal cannabis conference. And so there was interest from all over the world there, but very much focused on what's going on in the UK and further afield. So it was really interesting for us as a country to represent the Isle of Man and put our proposition there and get that validation that we are definitely heading in the right direction. And when we think about medicinal cannabis for export on the island, we now know the exact sort of market that we want to go for, which is in that area. So we don't want to have large pharmaceuticals setting up on the island. We've only got so much land to develop that's industrial. So therefore we know that we want those niche, high quality market businesses to come forward. I think the easiest sort of comparison I can make in terms of the businesses is, you've got large breweries in the UK and then you've got craft beer. We're very much going for that craft cannabis position, which we can't compete with the markets of Canada and the US. But we're very good as an island of producing very high quality products for export. And that conference was very much focused on those smaller producers or potential producers. So I think we were in the right part of the market for where we wanted to be.
Manx Radio Sport.
Faster My, Darren Timson.
Faster My. Isle of Man pro tennis star Billy Harris will face Spain's Jaume Munar in the first round of Wimbledon next week. The former Albany and Castletown player, who currently ranks 139th in the ATP World Rankings, will make his debut at the Grand Slam event in the coming days after he entered as a wildcard. The tournament will get underway on Monday, the 1st of July. For now, Harris is currently taking part in the semi-final of the Eastbourne International against Australian Max Purcell after he beat Flavio Cobolli by 2-1 in the quarter-final yesterday. Elsewhere, Mark Cavendish will begin his attempt to break the Tour de France all-time stage win record on Saturday. The Manx missile, who races for Team Astana Kazakhstan, currently sits on 34 stage wins, and one more would make him statistically the greatest stage winner of all time. He was inches away from breaking the record last year until he was caught on the line in Bordeaux by Jasper Philipsen. The first stage of the tour will begin in Florence tomorrow afternoon, 12 p.m. local time, as the riders then make their way to Rimini. Staying with cycling, Manxman Sam Brand has finished the third stage of the Tour of Slovakia today. Brand, who races for Team Novo Nordisk, took the stage from Bistani to Dumnica as he came in 80th place, which moves him up by 13 places in the general classification to 79th. The Manx rider will have to face a third consecutive day of mountainous roads as the peloton will ride on the routes from Partizanske to Rosenborg. Lastly, the Isle of Man bucket team won gold in the Gibraltar Special Olympics yesterday. Carl Monaghan, Sean Anderson, Nicola Woolridge and Rebecca Marler all took part to represent the island as Monaghan struck with the final ball of the game to seal the victory. Woolridge and Marler also picked up silver medals for the side.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Let's start on the water to begin with, and the steam packet departure from Liverpool, which was due to leave at 7:15, is now scheduled for 8 o'clock. In terms of leaving from Douglas, the Manxman is due to leave at 8:30. So now we head down to Ronaldsway for the latest information from there. And unfortunately, the departure to Manchester, the EasyJet flight, which was due to go at 5:30, is now going at 6:30. The Loganair flight at 6 o'clock is leaving on time to Liverpool, as is the EasyJet service to Liverpool at 6 o'clock. Also showing on time, the Loganair flight to Edinburgh at 5 to 8, although the EasyJet flight, the 8:10 to Gatwick, has been cancelled. So what does that mean in terms of the arrivals into the island? Well, the Edinburgh flight, the Loganair service, is due to land at Ronaldsway at 7:25. The London Gatwick obviously is cancelled. It was due to land at 20 to 8. The Liverpool Loganair flight is due to arrive at Ronaldsway at 5 minutes to 8. And the London City Loganair service is due to land at 10 minutes to 9.
Quayside Tyres and Service Centre with 1 year's free engine warranty from Castrol. Get more with
Quayside. You're listening to Update on Manx Radio. Government's Climate Advisory Body could see drastic changes, including the board being dismantled and repurposed in its entirety. Its chair, Daphne Kane, recently suggested she would be standing down from the panel to focus on her ministerial role within the Department of Education, Sport and Culture. Chief Minister Alfred Cannon was asked by Manx Radio's Christian Jones if she was leaving of her own accord.
Daphne's taken on a ministerial position, Education Minister, and she needs to commit herself to that role. She openly acknowledges that. She can't really do Climate Change Board and the education role. There's a lot of commitments for her. We're determined to improve education and educational output and delivery on the island. That's her area of concentration now.
You have to admit it does seem strange, though, doesn't it, that one of the two people who have more mentions of climate change in their election manifesto than you, and appears aggressively passionate about all things climate, is intending to step down from the one thing which gives her a lot of say in the island's climate direction. Did you play any part in suggesting that maybe she steps down?
As I say, my role was to appoint Daphne as Education Minister. That's my first decision, was that actually she would make a very good Education Minister with everything that she has said before and indicated in both Tynwald and Keys and in her manifestos. And therefore, really, it, to a large degree, has been in her court. But it's very difficult for her to do the job of Education Minister and do Climate Change Board as well. So
there are two other ministers on this board who seem to find the time, though. We've got the Infrastructure Minister and the DEFRA Minister, and I'm sure you'll agree those are not small remits.
No, exactly. So that's why we need to look at the board. But, Daphne's very much had that sort of central figure. The chair's been very, very central, has taken up quite a lot of time. Her now in education means that effectively it's absolutely important that they know that the Education Minister is entirely focused on delivering the education.
Chief Minister Alfred Cannon speaking there to Manx Radio's Christian Jones. The chair of Andrea's Commissioners hopes a new housing development will encourage more people to move to the village. Jackie Farragut says the board had concerns initially about drainage and flooding, but says it will be grand.
Immediately we welcome any sort of development in the village, but this is quite a big one. So hopefully we'll get lots of younger people in the village, which will fill up the school, help local businesses, and take the village forward. Originally it was going to be 17 properties, and now that's gone up to, I think it's 31. And we were concerned about the drainage, which still is a bit of a concern, but obviously it's all gone through. The planners have had a look at it, and they're happy for it to go forward. So we'll just take it from there, see how it goes. It'll be wonderful. Yeah, the village does need to grow. Everything needs to grow. The wheels of progress only turn forward. And yes, to bolster up the numbers in the school, it's a small parish school, but there's plenty of room for more children, so that would be a wonderful opportunity. And it would also tidy up, looks a little bit unkept just recently, because obviously there's been no work getting done, nothing's gone forward, so it looks pretty unkept, to be fair. So now hopefully when they start, it'll all start sort of falling into place, get the properties built and turn that into an attractive stretch of road, because at the minute it does look pretty unkept. I think where it is, it's on this side of the village rather than the other side. There's housing estates around there. There's a lot of people in the village. And yes, I think they'll be very accepting of it. Like I say, it will tidy up that area. And there's room in the village for that sort of amount of people moving in. It'll be just grand, I think.
Now then, you're probably aware, tonight is the last update programme to be broadcast at 5:30. From next Monday, July the 1st, the show will still be 30 minutes long, but it will begin at its new start time of 5 o'clock, just after the news, and its new presenter will be Beth Espy. Not the only change, though. After 17 years at Manx Radio and 50 years broadcasting, our very own Marc Tyley's hanging up his headphones. The morning show host is planning to take a gap year to travel and spend time with family. His journey with Manx Radio started in 2008 as controller of programming, news and content, and after a decade in this role, he decided to return to the airwaves.
And I was a director here, brought over to look at changing some programs and doing some development work with the team back then, and did that for about 10 years. And then I thought, right, I'd like to go back to do some program making. And so I did that about 7 or 8 years ago.
Where to from now?
It's pressing pause. I've been full-time in radio since 1978. I started in 74 in hospital radio, so I've been doing radio for 50 years. And the last 46 or so have not really had a break. And I never took a gap year. So what I thought I'd do is me and the long-suffering Mrs. T, we're going to take a gap year. My son and his lovely wife live and work in Singapore. And what we're going to do, certainly in the first part of next year, is base ourselves there for a while and explore bits of Asia we don't know.
Today is your last day. Talk me through some of the emotions.
Huge emotions. I'll be talking a little later on the show about what a relationship you can have with an audience, and that is incredibly special. It's not like reading the news, it's not like making a documentary. You're sitting in a darkened room for several hours, and you could be talking to yourself, but hopefully you're not. And when you see messages coming in or people sharing information about good times, bad times, that means so much. And I have to say, lockdown was an eye-opener. To be here doing this show, coming in the mask, going upstairs, don't see anybody, take the mask off, do the show, put the mask on and leave. I knew, because people told me, sometimes when that phone rang, I was the only person that listener had spoken to in that day.